Good morning. Good
morning, everyone. Welcome. This is the 4th installment of Start the Week.
Yep.
Last week, if you remember, we missed Zan's presence.
I wasn't around.
Yeah, because he was a victim of dengue. Can you tell us what happened and how have you recovered? Are you well?
I've recovered. I'm back at work after a week and a half gone. I was here when I was, suffering, and I was throwing up. I was sick. The cameraman had to help me, Wildan and all that. It was terrible. It was the worst I've ever felt.
Zan, tell me, a dengue sufferer once told me that when you feel so down, feel so very weak, it's like it's almost as close to death as one can get. Was it as bad as that? I
don't know how death feels like, but it was very, I felt very, very bad. I've never felt that. That was the worst I've ever felt. My health physically, people had to help me walk. So I do not wish that on anyone. No.
Okay, I guess the moral of the story is we just have to take care of our surroundings.
That's right.
We make sure that places where the Aedes mosquito can look for a place to lay eggs should be eradicated.
Yep.
A lesson for us all. Okay, for the start of the week, we will look at the recently concluded Congress, PKR Congress, which took place amidst uncertainty over the fate of the Menteri Besar. I understand that what we can draw is parallels between what is happening in Selangor with the kind of thing that is happening to our Prime Minister Najib, with words of wisdom, words of advice, not welcome, coming from Mahathir. Do you think, do you find similar parallels there between what is the Selangor MB is experiencing and what Prime Minister Najib is experiencing?
Yeah, I guess so, because imagine being an individual where, all the strong powers are actually against you. It must be very intimidating, it must be very scary, I guess, don't you think, Shiraza?
Yeah, I was looking at various stories over the weekend to look at what the beef Mahathir has with the present Najib administration. If you look at the situation in Selangor, during the Congress over the weekend, the leader of the Pakatan, Anwar Ibrahim, has said that there is nothing personal, no personal grudges against the Selangor Menteri Besar. It is just that here is somebody who is a renegade who doesn't want to toe the party line. In the case of Mahathir, his beef with Najib is, he has a whole list ranging from his pet projects that has been shelved, how Malaysia is being very pally-pally and subservient almost to foreign powers. If I could read and look at his other pet peeves, it includes the government's programs to give BRIM payments, and also he also finds problem with minimum wage. So these are the kinds of policies which Mahathir is finding, he is unhappy with. But as someone who is from the media viewpoint, do you think someone who has had his turn in office, should he just let go, Zan, or let the person, the incumbent, get on with it?
You know that he will never let go, right? That's my opinion. I think he's never going to let go. He feels that he needs to. He said it himself. He feels that he has a responsibility. He loves the country, right? And I guess he feels that this is his responsibility to improve the country, right? But I don't know. Do you think that they made
At what point it is seen as meddling? You've had your 2 decades in power, but of course, the legacy that you have left, it is at the mercy of those people who come after you. Is it just a matter of letting go and allowing the people who have been trusted with the reins of power to get on with it? Just get on with it.
Whether it's whether he wants to keep quiet or he wants to let go or he doesn't want to let go, I think that is kind of his right, or whatever he wants to do. But how strong is his clout that whatever he says has to go? It has people need to listen to. If the current administration, if the people running the country now don't want to listen, they can just not listen, right?
I think one of the legacies of the Mahathir administration is that Malaysia's name the world over was elevated to a level which I think you just mentioned Malaysia, and everybody knows where it is, what it stands for. And maybe I'd like to draw viewers' attention to 2 weekends ago when I attended a book launch. But this is the book, and you are looking at the
That's a nice segue. That's a nice segue.
Yes, and Zan made his way all the way to Afghanistan, and people there were still people were still talking about Malaysia in glowing terms.
Yeah.
And I understand you have come up with this book, which is. If you could tell us more about this book, how it's not your normal book.
No. It's a graphic novel. It's in comic form. It's journalism. It's non-fiction. But hey, in cartoons.
Maybe if anyone who's curious about who this person is, basically the role of this government spokesman, I would think, would be similar to the people you see on TV whenever there's problems in Gaza.
Yeah.
Out there betting for the Israeli government, pointing out their point of view is people like Mark Regev. Here on the one hand you have someone who's appointed to be the government spokesman, able to communicate and give the point of view of the Israelis.
Yep.
And he is up against people who are not able to speak, to be as polished as he is, and the message is lost when someone cannot communicate. But in this particular case, since this is a book, a cartoon book, I couldn't find an instance where Siddiqui actually spoke on behalf of the Afghanistan government. Perhaps we'll wait for another installment of this book.
Yeah, probably, but you can watch it on video. If you go to, you can go to astroawani.com and search for Afghanistan, and you see what I produced, what I shot there.
There you have it, viewers. Just go to astroawani.com and
search for Afghanistan.
And you find Zan and Siddiqui in there. There's also of interest throughout the week. A lot of Malaysians, individuals, politicians have taken up the ALS challenge. This is a challenge that grew out from overseas, where people accept dares where they douse themselves with a bucket of ice cold water, all in the name of charity. I guess it's not taking Malaysia by storm the way it's taken all the other parts of the world by storm. But I understand Barack Obama himself has chickened out, because he says, instead of dousing myself with a bucket of water, I'll just make a donation to the cause which you are fighting for. So, who in Malaysia has accepted the dare?
Well, we have a member of the cabinet who's actually accepted the dare. We have YB Kari Jamaluddin, who took the challenge, and he dedicated it to Mokhtar Dahari, who suffers from the disease, who suffered from the disease, and his staff actually, after pouring the ice water on himself, his staff actually pushed him into a swimming pool. So, so he took up the challenge.
A very watery end.
And then he nominated several other politicians too.
And have they decided, is there a date for when these people will take up the challenge?
I don't know. They're supposed to see it. If they see it, then straight away they're supposed to take up the challenge, I guess.
But I guess this is a noble idea in a sense that people do subject themselves to indignity for charity. I think this is far better way of raising funds for charity, rather than coming out with the longest lemang or the tightest ketupat or whatever. I think this is something new, and if someone in Astro AWANI issues a dare, I think we might see someone dousing himself with an ice, taking part in the ice bucket challenge on air soon.
But it's important that they have to donate after they douse themselves with the ice water.
I thought you donate if you do not accept the dare. But
you have to donate if you accept the dare.
Or you double the donation
yes,
if you don't.
Exactly.
A very noble idea indeed.
Yeah.
I just remembered, Zan, over the weekend I went to this place called Sekolah Kebangsaan Pudu in Sekolah Kebangsaan Chinwu in Pudu.
Okay.
And I saw very Malay-looking people playing basketball.
Oh.
And of course, when you see Malay-looking people playing basketball, they have to be Pinoy.
What? Hey, I play basketball. Okay,
yeah,
that's my sport.
That explains. So it's the sport of basketball, where it appears that there was a tournament in which the Filipino community were involved in a tournament. It is a sport in which is gradually taking a hold in this part of the world, but amongst the Malay community, it's still some way off. Yeah. I don't know, why is it you, how did you yourself come to play basketball?
Well, it seems that in Malaysia, a lot of the Chinese community actually partake in basketball, and they seem to dominate the sport. You know, if we look at local leagues, we have the normal open leagues and the non-Chinese leagues for other people who are not so good in the sport. So I got into it in school. It's a very American-centric sport, so part of my schooling days I was in the US. So that's where I picked up basketball. When I came back to Malaysia, that was my favourite sport. So that's how I got into basketball. Yeah.
But I guess it is a sport in which we will never be able to aspire to the greatest heights the way the Americans are. Judging if you're still 6'6", 6'3", you're still too short for basketball. Yeah. Anyway, we move on to squash. Over the weekend, the Malaysian Squash Open came to an end, and it seems the Egyptians took away the top prizes, and it is just another manifestation of Malaysia. You know, we play the role of the perfect host. We host world-class tournaments, but others come and take away the top prizes. Are you a great follower of squash as again?
Look, we have our Datuk Nicole David, right? I mean, she's the pride of the nation. She's still the world number one. I mean, at the Malaysian Open, she
was defeated in the semi-finals,
right?
To the eventual champion. I guess for Malaysians who love squash, who love world-class performer, please go out and watch Nicole play as much as you can, because she is at a stage of her career where she is peaking at the peak of her career, but she will come to a plateau where someone younger, as the Egyptian opponent is, will take over. She has dominated the women's squash game for a very long time, and I think for us Malaysians, we have had the pleasure of seeing her perform at the top of her game, and maybe we'll just be able to watch her for a little bit longer.
A little bit longer. I mean, that begs the question of who's the reserves? You know, who's going to come up after her in Malaysia? And if we have a development plan where we can actually come up with another star, with another Datuk Nicole David. It's nice to preempt that I recently sat down with our Minister of Sports, Khairi Jamaluddin, and we'll see that interview soon online on awani.com this week, hopefully.
So, actually, behind the scenes, there are people, there are sports where budding stars are being developed.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
We hope to see the results soon.
Yes.
And then we'll have new champions for us to sing the praises about. For followers of the BPL, this over the weekend was the second week of the BPL, and for people who follow Manchester United, the fate of the Red Devils, they have improved, Zan.
Improved?
Yeah, because the week before they lost. This week
they drew, right? Yeah, they drew.
That's an improvement. And away from the football pitch, Formula One is also attracting a lot of interest due to the shenanigans of teammates. Rosberg against Hamilton. Hamilton is someone who says, with friends like Rosberg, you don't need enemies like Alonso, because these are the personalities who are lighting up Formula One scene.
Right.
And when you have teammates crashing into one another, preventing a colleague who's fighting for the title from ever completing the race. So even if you're not a follower of Formula One, you are guaranteed, there are 7 more races left in this season, you're guaranteed of fireworks if you tune in every week. So that's our sports coverage for this segment. Thank you very much, Stan.
All right, thank you. I guess that's it for this week's installment, right?
Yes, we look forward to, I think by this time next week, we will find out whether we'll have a new Menteri Besar or not. I think that would be one focus of our news coverage.
Yeah, okay.
Ranjit, on to the budget. October is a deadline we are looking forward to.
Yes.
There are already moves being made by corporates and accounting bodies to ask and to make demands of the new budget. What can we expect of the budget for next year?
Okay, basically the 2015 budget will be tabled on October the 10th, and it will be a very important budget because we are introducing a new tax regime for 2015 which comes into force April 1st, the GST. And I think the Prime Minister has already has mentioned and has made it clear that one of the themes of the budget will be to address the rising cost of living, which is affecting the people at the moment. We had tariff reviews, and we have subsidy rationalization of the petrol prices and all, petrol and diesel prices. So costs have gone up, inflation is creeping in, and this has affected the livelihood of the people. So I think the budget will address these issues. Also, the budget will look at ways to enhance our competitiveness, because we cannot continue to be a low-cost labour centre for manufacturers and all that. So we need to address how do we actually move our economy from a low base to a higher income economy, as we aspire to be a high income nation in 2020.
The former Prime Minister Tun Mahathir has voiced out against pet projects and certain initiatives by the government, like minimum wage and subsidy payments. Will these be given attention this time around in the budget?
I think the notion of minimum wage has not been taken up very well with the industry. Even I think the Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers is still arguing the fact that we have a large population of foreign workers. So for them to be subject to the minimum wage, the cost of production will go up. So they are still, many of them have asked for exemption from the Labour Ministry, that they want to delay the implementation of the minimum wage, because for workers coming from low income countries like Myanmar, Bangladesh and all that, so they feel that the 900 ringgit minimum wage is still it will escalate the cost of production, and they are not very happy with that. But given the fact that generally prices are moving up, so wages have to be increased, or people will not be able to many if you can just look at the EPF contributions at the moment. There was a study done recently that 69% of the contributors to the EPF have less than 50,000 savings in their EPF. So the situation is quite critical. The notion that we have to increase wages is definitely on the cards.
Apart from on the domestic front, a few of our fellow journalists have already gone over to Indonesia to interview Jokowi.
Yes.
The man seems he's going to assume the mantle of the presidency in October. The man seems to be very approachable, and one of the policies which he has to grapple with is the increasing insularity of the Indonesian economy, because amongst the electorate there is this movement to want to seal their borders from foreign investment. Yes. Malaysian companies have borne the brunt in the past. Can we rely on this brotherly relation between Malaysia and Indonesia for businesses to be more open, and that there will not be any restrictions on Malaysian investment in Indonesia and vice versa?
Yes, okay. Recently there was news that the Indonesian government is looking at capping the investment limits that foreigners can own in plantation companies and also the banking sector. So Malaysian banks are big investors in Indonesian banks. We have BII, which is owned by Maybank, and also CIMB Niaga, which is owned by CIMB. So they are big investors. They are, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they are number 5 and number 8 in the Indonesian banking sector. And of course, this ruling will send shivers down the spine of this banking, because they have invested heavily, and their investment and their percentage of stake in these companies is very high. So, but given that the recent interview where Malaysian journalists approached Jokowi, he did not go into specifics on how this was going to be implemented. So it's still speculation at this moment. It has not been implemented yet. But if you look at the stock market, the Jakarta Stock Exchange, it has done very well. That means that investors, foreign investors, are warming up to the idea of Jokowi being a replacement for Bambang. And of course, Bambang had opened up the Indonesian economy. He had invited a lot of foreigners to participate in the economy. I think this will continue. But of course, Jokowi has got this notion of being a people's leader, because he's from the ground. So I think he has to play to the gallery that a lot of Indonesian interests will be taken care of. So I think the changes will not be as drastic as they look at the moment now.
So we can safely say that all the nationalistic jousting was confined to when Jokowi was trying to win the electorate, the favours of the electorate against Prabowo. Now that the election is over, the dust has settled, we can look forward to a period of pragmatism come October. When in Malaysia itself we'll have our budget, and in Indonesia itself we'll be welcoming a new president.
Yes.
So we look forward to the time when things will be more clear, and we'll have Indonesia welcomes a new president, and we will get a new budget.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right.